Erotic store employees. What are some interesting stories excuses people have given when buying toys equipment? NSW. I had a guy who would come in once every 2 weeks or so. He would buy around 10-20 movies and not much else. At least one of the movies would always be a one from our gay section, which always prompted him to explain he was from a state where you couldn't buy P legally, so he would buy it for multiple friends, one of which happened to be gay. I didn't really care and always just said something like, "That's nice." The best sale I ever had was a man who bought a few movies, a couple fleshlights, and a life-size fake butt. His ticket came to about $1,300. It was right at the end of the night. I helped him carry it to his car. Yes, the butt was that big, included thighs and part of torso. He left and I closed up for the night. The next day my manager asked about the sale and I told him the story. He informed me the man called and said he bought a couple movies and that was it, and demanded the rest of the charges be removed from his card. He said it was probably a bad case of buyer's remorse. I still got my commission and never heard about it again. Our post-nut clarity buyer's remorse combo. I had a husband come in looking for a vibrator with an extra long handle. He kept insisting longer, longer, longer whenever I showed him a model, so I finally asked why the necessity of length. He told me his wife had really let herself go and he needed a long handle so he wouldn't have to get too close to her. He wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole, the 20-foot one it is. Long post. One sticks out in my mind. We had a woman in her 60s 70s that came in and bought an excessive amount of DVDs. They were all different kinds too. Hetero, homo, fetish, everything. I was so caught off guard I started talking to her about free P sites, but she said her son prefers DVDs. I must have given her an odd look, so she elaborated and said her son was mentally challenged and had been sexually inappropriate behaviors in the past, so she bought him the movies and no more incidents. I didn't believe her until she came back in a week later with her son. I spent the next 2 years seeing them every 2 weeks or so. She started coming in and handing me cash and would go sit in the car while he made his selections. He was non-verbal and I'd have to help him pick out the movies and filter for anything that looked particularly aggressive per her request to me. I eventually started keeping DVDs to the side for him and would give him the free promotional DVDs and sample lubes we'd get. TLDR. Old woman buying pee for her mentally challenged son turns out to be telling the truth. It's unconventional, but that's a good mom right there. Oftentimes parents struggle to accept their children's sexuality. She obviously understands that this is a biological need for him and is doing her best. Not what is usually posted to our wholesome moms, but I think it counts. My first wife used to sell sex toys. She'd go to conventions with other sex toy sellers and distributors. One of the sellers had a market surrounded by 3 colleges, one of them Ivy League. She said that she had so many college-age women who didn't know how anything worked down there that she started carrying pamphlets for Planned Parenthood. So this is your body, 12 facts about your cycle, and other honest to goodness educational materials. Women would ask her medical questions and she'd have to explain what a gynecologist was for. Honey, I just sell glowing condoms and dildos shaped like tentacle dinosaurs. You need to ask a real medical professional these questions. And this was in 2009. Years ago, a friend of mine was a manager at an adult shop. At the time, she told me that a guy came in looking for a device that would basically insert his balls back into his person. Lots of other people would come in for crack pipes too, which also wasn't sold in that store. She told me that a guy came in looking for a device that would basically insert his balls back into his person. Oh, the Sumo Apprentice 2000 Mark II, now accompanied with heated glove, as seen on main TV. I used to work at an adult novelty store. We sold all sorts of things from SFW stuff like jewelry and masks to NSW stuff like 2-foot-long double-sided dongs. Most folks didn't find the need to make an excuse for what they were buying. There were 3 types of customers. We would have the regulars, usually men in their 60s or older, who would come in for a few DVDs and some enhancement pills. They don't talk much, in and out. We would get the college kids in for a laugh. They'd wander around the store for an hour touching everything and usually leave without buying anything. If they did buy, it was always a gag gift. Then there were the professionals, either performing drag queens, Strippers or professional dominatrixes, they were my favorites. They were kind, polite, and always knew exactly what they wanted. I would definitely fit in the second category. I went in one time with a buddy of mine to see what kind of clever names they had for movies and books. Now there's Amazon. Not a worker, but a customer. I wandered into one and asked for the most embarrassing, inappropriate gag gift to give to a guy at his bachelor's party. Many years ago somebody told me that you could buy an inflatable sheep at those stores, so I was hoping to find something like that in there. Or maybe a horse rear you could screw with the world's smallest penis pump. The cashier looked at me very strangely suspiciously and said they didn't sell anything like that. I don't think she believed it was a gag gift. About 5 years ago I wanted a fleshlight. I was single at the time and wasn't getting any. I got the $20 rubber vagina with built-in butthole too, and walked up to the counter and said, my brother is getting a divorce. Is this a good gift to celebrate? Everyone laughed and said it was perfect. I came inside of it like 13 minutes later. It was pretty awesome. Not me, but a buddy of mine worked at a smut shop for a few years a long time ago. He's got tons of stories, but my favorite one was when he was working and this older guy came to buy a bunch of gay pee and rent some gay videos. I told you it was a long time ago. After the guy paid he left and went home, called the store and asked for my friend by description. My buddy answered and the guy said he'd give him $40 for his underwear. I asked him, well, what the heck did you do? I stripped those bastards off in the bathroom, threw them in a plastic bag, and gave them to that idiot for $40. He never saw the guy again, and he has some more awesome stories about other people, but I always liked this one. Customer here had an awkward conversation with the poor gal behind the counter. I was looking for a good male massager, but wanted to know if she had any good recommendations. I was previously ripped off through some recommendations online that turned out to be cheap Chinese pieces of junk. The product page is artificially bolstered by botnets and fake reviews. The most pleasure the device gave me was the comedy gold of its English instruction booklet. So I wanted a human's perspective. Somebody who actually handles these kinds of things on the daily. Something that won't die after a month. I trust your judgment over internet reviews. Tried a couple recommended products online and got burned both times. Oh wow, she reels in surprise. I'm sorry to hear that. Did you have to see a doctor? If there's one thing I love about sex shop workers, they have a fantastic way to not make me feel like the most awkward person in the room. Bless her heart. I was tempted to leave them a 5-star Google Guides review using my real email address to really emphasize how grateful I was. Tried a couple recommended products online and got burned both times. Rimshot. One day my girlfriend and I were frisky, and our fingers could only do so much. Since I had recently moved to a new state, I wasn't quite as familiar with the area and I didn't know by memory where the nearest adult store would be located. We relied on my Maps app to take us to our destination. However, it didn't take us to a place where we could buy as many dildos as we could ever want. It instead told me to go into a freaking military base. I ended up pulling up to the gate area where some guys in camo asked us if we had a visitor's pass. I was honest with him and told him, I have no idea where I am. I'm just following my maps program and it told me to come here. The young man then asked me where I was going. I tried to respond with a vague answer, but he kept persisting. I'm a bit too awkward to tell this dude where two young lesbians were trying to go. Eventually he asked, are you looking for the arts and crafts place nearby? We said yes, and that answer was good enough for him. We turned around and found the right place, which was closed anyways. Mayo, I was stationed in Mississippi a few years ago that had a store like 0.3 miles away from the checkpoint. Me and a few buddies would go there for shoots and giggles, but I remember it being weird that I could see it from the gate. One of my girlfriend's first days working at one of these stores, she had a woman come in wearing a full niqab followed by a sheepish looking husband. The woman boldly stated in a thick local accent, I need a vibrator because she points at her husband doesn't satisfy me anymore. The husband shrugs in a that's about right I suppose kind of way. She says there were a few women who came in who wore the full head to toe Islamic clothing and usually wanted good push-up bras etc. to try to give themselves more shape in them. Satisfying your wife is a duty for any Muslim husband. The guy just had to. I worked at a hospital, but the story is NSW and he was using a sex toy. As an X-ray tech I saw several weird rays. One in particular was an action figure inside a man's rectum. As I handed him those rays he says, well, I'm sure you saw those rays and have questions. Well, I was playing with my daughter in the bathroom and slipped, and I fell right on the dang thing. I remained silent, but my first thought was, why are you playing with your daughter naked? Goodness, lucky you didn't land on your daughter. I worked at a Spencer's in Ontario, and as you know they have an adult section. Some guy, I'd say he was around 18-19, picks up a penis pump and keeps staring at me, so I walk up and ask if he needs help. He with a straight face said, I'm already huge, how much bigger will this make me? After that he proceeded to ask me out. Another time I sold a vibrator in the shape of a lipstick to my fiancee's mother, in front of him. Oh god, that sounds like my mother-in-law. Hopefully your meal's boundaries aren't as broken as mine. Not an employee but my own experience. The first time I went to a sex shop I decided to buy a small set of beads and some magazines. This was around 2010, so I had internet, just wanted something to aim at. I get to the counter and go to grab my wallet, only it isn't there, so I tell the lady I will be right back, must have left it in the car. I get to my car and there on my seat is my wallet and my keys. I've locked my keys and my wallet in my car outside a sex shop. I go back in, explain what has happened. I ask if she has any wire hangers or anything I can use to break into my car. Only thing she has is a fly swatter, which she won't give me because it is her only one. She calls her boss to see if it is okay for me to take it. Her boss just laughs and says it is okay, as long as I replace it. I spend the next 2 hours trying to break into the car while I get to see the rainbow of people. Some I knew, go into the shop. I did eventually unlock my car, pay for my items, and drive to the dollar store a block away and bought the counter lady a 3-pack of swatters. Just wanted something to aim at. Nicely phrased, dude. This is not me, but it's a story I read way back in the olden days before even web-based message boards existed and you used email message boards. So, dude worked at a smaller video rental store back in the day, where they didn't have enough staff to have someone watching just the adult section, which was separated off into its own restricted room. They had had a lot of trouble with people going in there, seeing that they were alone, and basically wanking it to the porno box covers. So they installed a security camera and an intercom PA system so that whoever was working the front could keep an eye on things and tell people to knock it off if they try. Well, one day, our dude was working the front when he caught somebody acting suspicious on the P-cam. When pervert looked around and started reaching into his pants, employee hit the PA button and yelled, "Put IT down." Pervert jumped out of his skin when suddenly the voice of God rang out of nowhere telling him to put the porno down, and he went tearing out of there like a scalded dog. That's a great story. I wonder if he ever tried that again. I've got a story that sort of fits this thread. At an auto shop in a sketchy neighborhood, one of my employees used to leave his windows down all day when parked on the streets despite repeated warnings. No idea how he never lost his radio. I finally came up with a diabolical plan to rid him of this habit before he suffered a theft and passive-aggressively blamed the workplace. Tasked my manager with stopping at an erotic store right along her way with purchasing the cheapest blow-up doll you sell. For a prank. Got a real beauty for under $20 with printed on fishnets and an undignified looking mouth. Next afternoon, I poked an air hose out the side of the building and blew her up. Then went to carry her across the street through a bunch of cars waiting at the signal. Everyone looked on with interest and amusement as I pantomimed SSSH and settled her into the driver's seat of his car. Then I went back in and with mock seriousness said, "Monty, there's a lady in your car." He already suspected something fishy, so he wandered out with no special urgency in his step as everyone else followed to watch. It was hilarious watching him try to deflate her as quickly as possible, squeezing and pushing and variants of spooning and the Heimlich maneuver while another wave of signal waiters enjoyed the spectacle. Then he did the march of shame back, trying to look angry with me without success. He never did leave his car open and unlocked again, though. I thought you would have to blow her up from outside the car, but the windows had to be completely down I guess, so it wasn't necessary. Not an employee, but a customer. I have a deformity where I was born without a cervix and a malformed uterus. which resulted in my vagina being more like a pouch that needs to be expanded through dilators and such. My BF and I went to a blue boutique sex shop, of course, dunno if it's only here in my state or not, to look around. We go in the section with all the toys and such, and since it was dead, the lady in charge, maybe mid-20s, and I have a conversation with me asking what she'd recommend for someone with my deformity, because if I'm gonna sit for 30 minutes with something up my hoo-ha, I wanna at least enjoy it a little. My doctors have rarely seen this deformity and didn't give nearly as much info for sex as this lady did, though I wasn't mainly focused on sex since I was single at the time, so she gave me advice. At least 20 minutes of foreplay, oh boy, and showed me a vibrator that had different vibration patterns and the vibrations were soft so it wouldn't hurt me more than I already would be forcing myself to expand down there. We apologized for the weird conversation and she said this hadn't actually been the first time she has had to talk with ladies with small deformed vaginas. Sorry if this isn't so interesting, but it was to me since so little people have heard of this deformity. I have a reverse story. I was in a shop looking at prostate massagers. The employee walked up to me and pointed out they were prostate massagers. I turned and looked at him and he said most girls drop them and say you. I said not me. I like to put things in my husband's butt. I ended up getting a much better quality one, an anorus, somewhere else. It's practically life changing. A town I lived in years ago had a pee store. It was always funny to go in there to buy pee. Back in the pre-internet days of VHS, and see others that you knew. You would always start doing this little dance with them, and there you would pretend you were in there for one of the novelty gifts for a supposed birthday. They would do the same. They would be waiting for you to leave and you them. This would go on for half an hour before one of you just gave up and left. Given how comfortable pretty much everybody is with pee these days, it's funny to look back when it was a bit shameful. I was the guy doing the buying. My friend and I are into firearms and he recently got a bolt-action rifle with no scope. I hinted that I'd get him a scope for his birthday in 2 weeks. Once I get the scope I see I can reseal the box. I head over to my local sex toy shop with the box and say without hesitation, I need the cheapest dildo you can fit in this box. Preferably double-sided. Both of the employees took it professionally but were trying to hold back their laughter. They asked why out of curiosity and said it's for a friend's birthday. Part of me thinks they didn't believe me. Best $20 gag I ever bought though. Friend and I went to the local erotic goods store to get tons of condoms and individual lube pods to help fill an adult pinata. I was pretty shy and vanilla, so it was already a struggle for me to just be in there and not blush. While shopping, I mentioned to my buddy a new bong that I was planning to buy. Friend asked me how big, and I put my hands up and said, oh, like 14 inches or so. Right then, a large bearded man who worked there approached and asked, oh hey cutie, you're looking to get a new toy? I can definitely help you find something that size. I turned beet red instantly and started stammering, finally explaining that I was talking about something else. I don't think he believed me, because he tipped my friend a wink and said, okay sweetie, you know where we are if you change your mind. I don't mean to assume anything, but this story is way better if you're a guy. I didn't work in an erotic shop, it was a pawn shop. The owner thought that it would be a good idea to start stocking a variety of cheap P DVDs. We had some of the cheesy parodies like Lord of the G-String along with a bunch of other softcore. One day a customer came up to the counter with a carrier bag and his receipt. I'd like to return these discs. Colleague asked if there was a fault with the discs. Customer said nah, I've watched them and want to change them. Colleague said that we don't exchange stuff like that. Customer sod it. Keep them then and leaves the bag on the counter. Bag contents were rather suspiciously sticky. It was a fun place to work overall, but not that day. We had a short, maybe 4'11", elderly man who came in every month or two and bought the new extra large dildos we had in stock. I'm talking the length and girth of a grown man's arm size toys. Ran about $80 $120, and anal lube. It was always a gag gift. I must have sold him 10 of the things. Not mine, but a family friend that worked at a pee store where they sold toys. Pretty sure this story has gotten around too by now. They had all the normal stuff you'd expect at a pee sex toy shop. including a selection of various sized butt plugs. Now normally they didn't judge, but they had this novelty butt plug that was, as they said, I kid you not, the size of a dinner plate that everyone would laugh at and then buy something reasonably sized. Until one day the stereotypical guy trying to keep a low profile came in and avoided everyone until there were no other customers in the building. Then went up and said in practically a whisper, "I want that butt plug there." "Okay, which one would you like? The big one? This one? I mean the big one." He bought it and left, and again my friend was not one to judge, but even they were going, how the heck was this guy not crapping himself while walking if his butt was loose enough to get that thing up in there? He put a plug in it, lol. I remember back in the early days of the web, before 2005, not sure when exactly, there was a blog written by a female employee of an adult video store. She had at least 50 entries and they were all riveting. Regular customers who would rent 2 videos and return them 75 minutes later, like clockwork. Weirdos and crazies and all sorts of great stories. I work in a sex store. I have for 6ish years now. This just happened, maybe 3-5 months ago. A middle-aged woman, blonde, very attractive, huge breasts, asks me to help her try on some lingerie. Not that out of the ordinary. Sometimes corsets are hard to get on. Lots of lace work on some of them. But no, it was just a nightie type thing. Sheer black, and she just wanted to make sure it would fit her chest because of her aforementioned large breasts. We're not in the dressing room. We're at the counter. She lifts her top, bra included, and asks me to get her tea into the bust of the nightie. I obliged. She bought it and left me $1 tip and said something to the effect of "overworked" and "appreciated" and left. I have many stories, but this is the most recent and most awesome that was completely out of nowhere. Not an employee but a customer. When I was buying a fist-shaped butt plug, I was asked why I was buying it. I said it was a gag for a friend. I lied. I wanted to stick it in my butt. Why the heck would anyone even ask that? I think I may have actually embarrassed the clerk last time I went down to Ye Olde Romantics. I needed a new vibrator because mine had died like 6 months ago. I was deliberating trying something different for like 10 minutes before I said frick it and got the same model I liked. I got up to the register and she checked it all out and offered to me to test it myself. "Oh no, I'm good. I've owned this model before," I said as she put her own hand against the surface and immediately had an "oh crap" expression. The low setting is the only one I use, but some people used to really weak vibrations are probably shocked by it. She asked if anything else had piqued my interest. I said kinda. I think I'm just kinda happy with this one though. My old one lasted 2 years before the motor burned out. She was clearly holding in giggles and definitely laughed as she offered me my receipt and was red in the cheeks. Like, "Miss Lady, why are you working in a sex shop if comments of that caliber are enough to make you snort?" The one my GF and I go to only has girl employees, and part of their marketing is that they've tested all of the products there. The ones for girls at least, and I imagine that's 95% of sales. But you show the girl at the counter 2 giant dildos and she'll tell which one you want and why. I was working at a sex store a few years back. The hours were good and I am very good at selling stuff, so the pay was very good. As a woman working there, I encountered lots of weird men that would say and do weird things in front of me while picking DVDs. One Indian guy asked me for an penis extension. Then when he was leaving and had already bought his thing, he said to me, "You a bad girl, aren't you?" and tried to slap me across the face. I knew where the camera was pointing, so I knew I had gotten him on camera. The next time he came in, I alerted the manager and he called the cops. Had him arrested for trying to assault an employee. Not sure how that ended. Another really fat Mediterranean man would go every Thursday and try to lean really close to me on our glass tables. He would then start describing his most recent movie he had watched to me while making weird finger movements on the table towards me. I hated that guy. Even after I got a better job and left the sex shop, he would ask, "Where did the other girl go?" We once got our sex doll body parts in the mail, and after we unboxed a life-size sex doll and started putting her on display, an Asian guy shows up 20 minutes after. He immediately bought the doll for $3,000. He also bought some sexy clothes, shoes and a costume for the doll. Had his beauty help him load his new blonde sex doll into his car. Fastest sell of my life. Last one. A white super tall man walked in and asked me, "Where are your super small fleshlights?" I said right over there. I thought he meant something tight. He comes back and says, is this the smallest one you have? I said yes. Then he says, I am looking for something way smaller than this. Making a hand gestures the size of a quarter. He asks me for a smaller fleshlight. Then he says he has a very super small tiny micro penis. This guy was like 7 feet tall. So after looking everywhere and not finding anything that small, he was all frustrated and says, oh well, I've been let down before. So I see a fake butt. I rip off the tester from the box that is the size of a quarter and give it to him. I say, just take it buddy. He exclaimed, perfect, and left all happy. I'm happy for the guy in the last story. You did good. I worked at 2 different sex shops many moons ago. My favorite people were the professionals. They basically knew generally what they wanted and weren't shy to talk. At one of the shops I worked at, we had a selection of toys, DVDs, and as I called them, Jack Sharks. These are stalls where there's a video screen that you pay money for however long you wish to watch whatever selections of movies. Our store was purchased by new owners. In the Jack Shacks we had metal panels to prevent glory holes. New owners decided to take them down because they actually wanted glory holes. It was always sucky. Hahaha, when it was your turn to monitor it back there and make change for people. One winter the heating broke down and we were without heat for 1 full day while waiting for the heating repair people. Owners made us stay open. The thermostat reader showed it was about 36 F and there. Dudes were still going into the dang Jack Shacks even though it was freezing cold. I swear that I should have had complimentary ice picks instead of baby wipes in the stalls that day. Jack Shark is quite menacing. Turn it in a glory hole and lose your dong. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.